Do you remember when we told you that your next EV might be powered by nuclear energy? Well, that is going to be the case if this revolutionary new battery technology hits the market. No, you are not going to have uranium inside your car, but you might have a battery that could be closely related to a nuclear power plant. Elon Musk has always been a huge fan of nuclear energy, as he thinks that nuclear energy is always the way to go instead of relying on fossil fuels. The billionaire also said that some environmentalists were anti-human for advocating the shutting down of nuclear plants, and countries should be focusing on increasing nuclear power generation. It is necessary from a national security standpoint and bad for the environment to shut them down. This is because nuclear energy is clean, efficient, and could replace fossil fuel. But energy generated needs to be stored somewhere, right? The conventional batteries that we have today are made of lithium ions, and these batteries are extremely good at putting out a lot of power for a short amount of time, and that is also the problem with these batteries, as they can only store charge for a very short period of time depending on the battery size, and over the years it will lose a substantial fraction of its ability to hold energy. That is not the case with nuclear diamond batteries or beta-voltaic cells. These cells are all about producing tiny amounts of power for a long period of time. For now, they don't put out enough juice to power a smartphone. But depending on the nuclear material used, they can provide a steady drip of electricity for small devices for thousands of years. Keep watching till the end to know a lot more about these revolutionary batteries that might power the world sometime in future. Batteries have always been the major limiting factor with the devices that we use today, and also with electric vehicles. The case is more serious with electric vehicles because they require some of the best batteries that can offer faster charging speeds, better energy density, and light in weight. Yes, today's EVs are a lot better than what they used to be, but that simply does not cut it anymore. Battery technology is still primitive compared to the rate at which the technologies that use batteries are evolving. But that is about to change with diamond nuclear batteries. Nuclear energy is an unpopular source of renewable energy because of its safety concerns, as it is linked to several high-profile disasters like Chernobyl and Fukushima. According to a report published in 2021, the United States had permanently closed 12 nuclear reactors ever since 2012. Shutting down nuclear reactors is a bigger threat to humanity than global warming, and Musk has always been a vocal proponent of nuclear energy, as it is a renewable energy source, especially during Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which resulted in record high prices for oil and gas. Nuclear energy has always been the fastest way to produce energy. With this new battery, you are not putting a nuclear power plant into the cell. Instead, you're just using the waste that is generated from a nuclear power plant. The concept was put out by the scientists from the University of Bristol Cabot Institute during their annual lecture that was held on 25th November 2016 at the Wills Memorial Building. This battery will be running on the radioactivity of the waste graphite blocks, which were previously known as neutron moderator material in graphite-moderated reactors, and it would generate small amounts of electricity for thousands of years. This invention was presented as a beta-voltaic device, which means is going to be powered by the beta decay of nuclear waste. Now, for those of you who don't know, beta decay is the type of radioactive decay that occurs when an atom's nucleus has an excess of particles and releases some of them to obtain a more stable ratio of protons and neutrons. This produces a kind of ionizing radiation called the beta radiation, which involves a lot of high-speed and high-energy electrons or positrons, known as beta particles. These batteries can be manufactured in a variety of configurations under intense pressure and for different power capacity variants like 1.5 volt, 3.0 volt, 4.0 volt, and 6.0 volt. As of now, these are still in the prototype stage, and these batteries will make their debut with a smartwatch. These batteries are touted as economical, clean, and promises circular economy advantage. The diamond nuclear battery, with all its positives, also has its own negatives. These batteries are ideal for devices with lower energy requirements like your smartwatch or a pacemaker. If these batteries in its current form are used to power electric vehicles, then the mass of the battery would be significantly greater than the mass of the vehicle, which completely defeats the purpose. This has to do with the fact that these batteries only give out 1/10 of the energy when compared to a normal conventional battery. This is why companies that work on nuclear diamond batteries are looking at applications where it is impossible or impractical to regularly charge a battery, like sensors in a remote device like a Mars rover, or devices that are situated in hazardous locations like nuclear waste repositories, or on satellites, or any implants that require batteries inside your body. The problem does not end there. Not everyone is convinced about the idea of having something radioactive anywhere near them. But this is due to the misconceptions surrounding these cells. The health risks are very much comparable to the health risks of exit signs, which use radioactive material called tritium to achieve their significant red glow. Yes, that's right. This means this technology is safe, all thanks to the beta particles that can be stopped by just a few millimeters of shielding, unlike gamma rays or the other more dangerous types of radiation. Usually, the battery case in itself is sufficient to stop any emissions. The inside is hardly radioactive, so everything is safe and sound. When the nuclear battery runs out of power, it decays to a very stable state, which means you get to see no leftover nuclear waste. This technology is not a new one. It has been around since the 1970s, but it was only very recently researchers started to put it to good use cases by initially testing it out in pacemakers, because a faulty pacemaker can mean the difference between life and death. With the modern-day pacemakers, these batteries were eventually replaced with the cheaper lithium-ion batteries that we have today. A typical photovoltaic cell consists of thin foil-like layers of radioactive material that are sandwiched between semiconductors. As the nuclear material naturally decays, it emits the high-energy electrons or positrons called beta particles that knock electrons loose in the semiconductor materials to create an electric current. You could say that a nuclear battery is very similar to a solar panel, except for the fact that its semiconductors soak up beta particles rather than photons. But just like solar panels, there's a limit on how much power can be squeezed from the nuclear battery. This has to do with the fact that the power density drops off if the radioactive source is further away from the semiconductor. So if the layers of the battery are more than a few microns thick, the power of the cell will plummet, and that's not something that you want from a battery. Moreover, the beta particles are randomly emitted in all directions, which means only a fraction of them will actually end up hitting the semiconductor, and only a fraction of them will be converted into electricity. As of now, these batteries are at 7% efficiency when it comes to converting the radiation into electricity. This is far away from the theoretical maximum efficiency of nuclear batteries, which is about 37%. This is where carbon-14 comes into the picture, because it is known for its role in radiocarbon dating, which allows archaeologists to estimate the age of ancient artifacts, and it can also provide a boost to nuclear batteries, all thanks to the fact that it can function both as a radioactive source and also as a semiconductor. It has a half-life of about 5,700 years, which means a carbon-14 nuclear battery could power an electronic device for longer than humans have had written language, which is just insane. Scientists were already able to grow artificial carbon-14 diamonds by bleeding methane into hydrogen plasma in a very special reactor. As the gas is ionized, the methane breaks down and the carbon-14 collects on the substrate in the reactor and then begins to grow in a diamond lattice. But rather than using this radioactive diamond in a very conventional sandwich battery configuration, where the nuclear source and the semiconductors are discrete layers, scientists patented a method to infuse the carbon-14 directly into the vanilla lab-grown diamond, which is very similar to what would be found on a ring. The result is crystal diamond with a seamless structure, which minimizes the distance the beta particles have to travel, and it also maximizes the efficiency of the nuclear battery. Up until now, the radioactive source has always been discrete from the diode that receives it and converts it into electricity. Now, for those of you who don't know, carbon-14 is naturally formed when cosmic rays strike nitrogen atoms in the atmosphere, and it is also produced as a byproduct in the graphite blocks that contain the control rods for the nuclear reactor. These blocks will eventually end up as nuclear waste. There are already 100,000 tons of this irradiated graphite in the UK alone. The UK's Atomic Energy Authority recently recovered tritium under the radioactive isotopes used in nuclear batteries from 35 tons of irradiated carbon blocks, and the agency is working on developing a similar process to recover the carbon-14 from graphite blocks. If diamond nuclear batteries become mainstream, our devices may not be able to last as much as these batteries, which means you will need to replace your device before replacing your battery, as nobody wants their devices to last for thousands of years anyways, especially in a day and age where we upgrade our gadgets every year or two, and our vehicles every 5 years on an average. Nonetheless, this technology is exciting in the very stagnant world of batteries that run the world, and might finally be able to solve the issues that we have with today's batteries.